From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, end of spring awards. Corey and I forecast how we think it'll shake out after the 15th and final practice. And a deep dive on baseball. Even the head coach saying the team could be special. Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Daily lunch specials Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for only $8.99. Take advantage. Today, half-pound all-black Angus beef burger. You get the lettuce, you get the tomato, the onion, and the pickle, obviously. But you also get a side dish of your choice. Great options, can't go wrong. Always a winner over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Tuesday, 7 p.m. sharp, Trivia Tuesdays. Come in, enjoy food and drink specials while playing some trivia. Compete against the best. Although, I don't know, Corey, you going to be down here Tuesday?
I'm in town, but I can't go to trivia because there's a baseball, but there's also football practice.
That's right. Practice.
So, hey, it takes priority over trivia, barely.
Warchant.com. All of our efforts, all of our priority is into pouring information, content over at warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Why don't you head over there and check it out? Subscribe. Be part of the tribe. All the good folks hanging out over on the boards. We'll actually pop off a question here in a little bit to get us started in the football direction, although we don't have a lot on the bone left after a very brief Zoom with Coach after the scrimmage on Thursday, which we discussed on the Friday show, but we'll see what we can do. Baseball, though, obviously also carrying things along, softball, sweeping, so that's always a good thing. But how are things with you, Corey Clark? Can I pull back the curtain and talk a little bit about your Sunday after watching some basketball?
Yeah, but I know what you're going to say, so I'll beat you to the punch. We did not have a driving lesson. The game, the last 3 minutes of game time for that NC State Duke game must have lasted 30 minutes of real time. That didn't help. And then also, I was going to have to go to the gas station first. So the point was, I was going to give Brady another driving lesson, his third or fourth, with under the watchful eye of his dad. Okay. And, I was like, by the time I get to the gas station and we get to a place where I would trust him to drive and not put people in peril, it would be after 8 o'clock, and we don't need him driving at night.
All right.
We'll do it later on today, buddy. We'll do it later on today.
So have we graduated up from parking lots to now we're going to put him out there like a live scrimmage?
We will. I'm going to get him on I-10, probably drive to Biloxi and see how he handles that. And then I feel if he can do that, we're fine. Then I'll take him on the way back, 285 near Atlanta.
Well, you were talking about, you don't want him to be unsafe. Can you just drive to a high school parking lot and just putt it around at night, or that just...
We could, and that might be something we do after we get done recording, but okay. I doubt it. I think I'm going to save it for tomorrow, unless he wants to drive around the Corner Pocket parking lot while Stephanie and I go inside. He can just do that for a couple hours.
Maybe the parkway's friendly.
That's fair. That's fine. There's a few pedestrians you got to look out for. But yeah, so I will. I do have him drive on the road some. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that don't care about this. There's also a lot of parents that have had to go through this. I'm going to white-knuckle it pretty good the first time I'm actually on a road with him. He was barely on a road driving from a parking lot to my house up in Atlanta. But this next excursion will be a little longer, and hopefully he won't panic and drive into a ditch.
We got faith in you, Brady. You got this. You got this. As always, check out the show notes for timestamps of when we started talking about things. So if that upset you, not sorry. Shout out to guys like James B., other folks in the comments section on the YouTube side of things. I love our podcast, folks, because their only recourse is to leave like a 5-star rating and review, although some leave like 1-star reviews. Although I think we've culled all them off. I think they've gone off and found other places to hang out. But someone didn't like me talking about my gambling. Like, we don't want 10 minutes of gambling talk. And people are like, dude, it was 3 minutes. Look in the show notes. You could have skipped ahead. P.S. It's free. Get over it. I was like, all right. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys out there doing the Lord's work. Our guy, Derek, XCQ004, doing the Lord's work for us, helping us forcing the football on this Monday. Hope you're all doing well. Hope Easter Sunday went nice and smoothly for all of you. It's kind of the nitty-gritty part of spring, it feels like, Corey. There's no more long gaps. Shout out to Coach Norvell giving the guys several days off to enjoy the Easter holiday with their families, but we're to like 3 days a week now. It's going to be pretty consistent up until we get to the spring showcase on April 21st, so lots to learn and observe here the next few days as we're out at practice. He knows and realizes it's very early in the spring practice, but can you predict who will be these superlatives at the end of it all? We tease this at the end of Friday's show. Offensive, defensive MVPs of the spring, Corey. Defensive MVP, I'll beat you to the punch on that one. Probably Azareye'h Thomas?
Yeah. Him or Daryl Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the two guys that I think have stood out, that have been the two best players on that side of the ball. It's really more about, I think Azareye'h gets more work just because of the nature of their positions, and you want to rotate. And, I think that Azareye'h probably gets more reps in practice, especially in like the team stuff. So, but I would say those are the two leading candidates by far and away. I think the two betting favorites.
All right. Now, offensively, who would be the MVP at the end of the spring? Do you forecast, Coracle?
I'm gonna. It's a good one. It's a good question.
I mean, it's the receiver. It's a receiver.
Yeah, it's got to be a
right?
receiver. I mean, you could say DJ. But that's the easy way out. I feel like people want a skill position. I'm going to say Destin Hill.
Okay, I like that. I will counter with Malik Benson.
Okay,
on the Benson train over here.
Yeah.
Although maybe we'll start seeing some more run game stuff now that they're fully immersed in padded practices. Maybe we'll get a little more opportunities to see that shine, and maybe one of those guys takes the bull by the horns and starts leading the way there. Offensive, defensive, most improved. I'm going to steal your answer from MVP. I think I want to put Daryl Jackson as defensive most improved. That's going to be my pick. Who do you think will ultimately be the most improved player at the end of the spring? And I'm doing this obviously big picture, not in terms of like 1 to 15 in terms of how they look day 1, how they look day 15 at practice, but just the most improved since the last time we actually saw them kind of play football. So I'm going to go Daryl Jackson for my most improved guy.
Yeah, it's a hard question because all the guys I want to talk about either are coming from other schools or were okay last year. But the first guy that's jumped to my mind, and again, it's just through 4 practices that we've seen, Fintrell Cypress. I'll say this: he looks different. He just going from the 2 springs. Like Fintrell was fine during the season. He wasn't a superstar. He wasn't a lockdown first-day NFL draft pick, but he was a starter on a 13-0 team and a very productive guy. But he wasn't anything special in last spring, right? He was here in the spring, right?
No, I was a little nervous about that.
Yeah. So this year he's looked a lot closer to the guy I think that Florida State fans thought they were getting last year. And I say that it's not his fault, but he was the number 2 guy in the entire portal, right? 2 or 3, or he was really high up there. He looks like it this year. He's been, in my opinion, really good so far. And I don't know if he's just like didn't take spring all that seriously. Or didn't know, you come from Virginia, that, it's not Mike Norvell up there. And maybe he didn't get adjusted to the speed of spring and the importance of spring like he should have necessarily, but he's looked like a different guy. Him and Azareye'h both, honestly, have looked really good so far. So does that count as a most improved?
Absolutely, yeah, man.
All right,
I picked Daryl Jackson. I mean, he was here last year, and that's all I'm saying, just in terms of what we saw from these guys. And
I thought Daryl Jackson was darn good last spring. He wasn't anything special once he found out he wasn't going to play, you know what I mean? But I thought in the spring when we thought we were pretty confident that he was going to play, I thought he was really impressive on some days.
Yeah. Offensive most improved, I'm going to project this one out. I'm hoping it'll be Jeremiah Byers. I think that would be probably the best kind of case scenario for this offense because – obviously Robert Scott not out there. We're going to pencil him in at left tackle regardless, I feel like. We know what we have with Maurice. Darius is going to fill up one of those spots on the interior. Then you got Keandre Jones and Ferguson and Richie Leonard fighting for one of the other guard positions. Armella in the mix. And then if Jeremiah Byers can live up to his physical gifts, his athleticism, if he can put that all together, and we'll get to speak to Coach Atkins, I think, later this week. Do we get Atkins? Yeah, we get him we get him next week. We got him next Tuesday.
Okay.
But
All right.
Curious to see him, size him up. But I'm going to go with most improved. I'm going to kind of project and put my fingers. I hope it's Jeremiah Byers.
I don't think I have an answer for this. Early maybe. As in Jalen Early. I was trying to think of Morlock. He came to mind, but none of the running backs. Like Keziah Holmes, how are you most improved? And also running backs are hard to say anyway because they're not really getting tackled. Oh, you know what? I got it. Brock Glenn.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Brock. That's actually a really easy one because he has been worlds better this spring than he was this time last year, which is expected. He's supposed to be in high school, and he's playing again, practicing for a team that is one of the best teams in the United States, and he's thrown in as a 18-year-old kid, not even like a normal freshman age. So he didn't ever look overwhelmed last year, but he didn't look like this either. Like he looks like a much more competent, confident kid than he was this time a year ago, which is to be expected. That's the natural flow and order of things.
I guess honorable mention. I would like to see maybe Morlock or one of the guys behind him kind of flash consistently here more often.
Agreed.
That'd be nice as well. And then who do you think will be the top offensive? I guess maybe we jumped this. So actually, I don't think we haven't done any newcomers per se. Malik Benson, I guess, spring MVP. Yeah. Who do you think will be the top newcomers on each side of the ball after spring is over? I guess we'll start with defense. Keep the trend going here. Who'll be the best newcomer on the defense? Am
I going to do it again? The Oregon State defensive end.
Sione Lolahea.
Lolahea, right?
Yeah, piece of cake.
Yeah, Lolahea. Come on, man.
You crushed Uyunglele the other day. I was proud of you.
I did.
Man.
I'm 1 out of 11 on those. I'm starting to get a little more confident while I at least try it and not call him DJ. But Lolahea is my guy for a newcomer on defense.
I guess Earl Little.
No, that's a good one.
Earl Little making some flash plays out there and hearing the way the coaching staffs talked about him, the way Surtain talked about him at the luncheon. He knows what he has in that guy, and if he can stay healthy, and no reason to think he won't, that'll be an exciting piece of that defense. Offensively, I don't know, double dipping and saying Benson, since I already picked him as MVP, it would be hard to say he's not the top newcomer if he's your most valuable player. But you have somebody else that's more creative, more thoughtful of an answer than me going back to the well and picking Malik?
No, man, that's a good one. Again, Roydell Williams is fine. He's looked fine. He's looked good. It's just, again, it's hard to – I don't want people to think if we're not naming these guys, that means they've looked bad. It's just, especially at the running back position, it's like it's – you sometimes, honestly, and this is probably something I should admit, I forget Toafili's out there.
Yeah.
Just because through the course of a practice, I'm more paying attention to the pass catchers versus the pass deniers than I am the DBs than I am the running backs, because they're not involved a lot in team stuff because they don't want to get tackled. Obviously, they're not just running counters and you just get brought to the ground. So the running backs you kind of almost forget a little bit. Now you don't forget. Let's go with Jalen Lucas.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Good. I was almost gonna be a coward and say Jaylen Brown, and then be like, well, how are you gonna pick another guy same position to be MVP?
Yeah,
and
it's like you might as well have like 10 guys on your all-conference team if you're a all-conference basketball team. I'd say with Lucas, though, because I was just talking about the running backs and how it's hard to make an impact or be noticed that much. Well, he's different. Let's just put it that way. He's more of a he is a threat coming out of the backfield. And he runs at a very, very high rate of speed, and it's been very noticeable, a lot of times already.
All right, there we go. Talking football.
We did it, man. All right.
Shout out to our guy Derek.
Well, the beauty is we're going to get back to it because it's been a gap here, but on Tuesday we get to watch practice again.
Mm-hmm. Practice. Corey, when's the last time you took a shot at Vitamin Energy? Do you remember the flavor of it? Do you remember which variety you took?
It was sour apple.
All
so
right.
is that the
Workout
Is that
Plus?
the Workout Plus? Yeah. Friday.
All right.
Yeah, because I haven't worked. I did work out on Sunday, but I didn't have any at my disposal at the time.
All right, that's fine. That's why I carry them in my car in the console.
Smart.
I should put like 1 or 2 in the gym bag because it's that easy. They're small. They're not even 2 fluid ounces, these bottles. And when you buy one and use a promo code WARCHAMPBOGO, you'll get one for free. It's crazy. They're Florida State fans, though. They love you, folks. That's why they're doing it. Clinically tested, clinically proven to obviously give you all the energy you need throughout your entire day. Don't skip a beat. 260 milligrams of all-natural caffeine, as well as nutrients and vitamins to improve other facets of your daily life, whether it's your focus, your workout, your mood, things of that nature. You know how it all goes. Go to vitaminenergy.com. Use that promo code WARCHAMPBOGO, WARCHAMP, B-O-G-O. Shake it and take it, vitaminenergy.com. Let's go to some baseball, Corey, shall we?
Let's do it.
Noles back on the right side of things. What a strong week. Strong week from the Noles, right? Starting it off with going to Florida. We spoke to Coach Link Jarrett after every single game this past weekend against Louisville, and he talked about the bus rides. And, yeah, man, they took a bus up to Clemson, and they bus back having to stew in the madness that happened up there a week ago to only turn around and get back on a bus and go down to Gainesville. And then handle business the whole week practically. 14-3, obviously, over the Gators on Tuesday night in Jacksonville. I said Gainesville. I'm sorry, Jacksonville. And then it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday set. Game 1, 8-3 victory for the Noles. Things not as smooth on Friday when they lost 5-2, but they bounced back and took the series. 9-4 win on Saturday against Louisville. And this is the part of the podcast, Corey, where somebody else did all the work in the group exam, the group test, and I'm just the one that's going to go ahead and speak about it. So shout out to all of our folks on the message board on the baseball forum. Our guy, Noel961, pointed out that Louisville entered the series, Corey, number 7 in hitting in the country, batting .330. That's the highest batting average of any team on the schedule thus far. The pitchers only allowed 22 hits in the 3 games and just 6 earned runs in those 3 games combined. Louisville hit .214.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote it's on the website now if you're a member, and you should be. I kind of wrote about, it was a really nice response, and not just, it's crazy when you think about it. So they got that first game at Clemson rained out. So from Saturday, and then they had an early series the next week. So from Saturday to Saturday, they played 7 games in a week's time against Clemson in Florida and then Louisville, and also they had an 8-hour bus ride back from Clemson. I'm assuming it takes 8 hours on a bus. Then they immediately had 1 day of practice and then had to go to Jacksonville to play Florida, come back, practice Wednesday, and then have an ACC series the next day. They got essentially 2 off days and then played 7 games in those other 6 days against good teams. It's nice that they're getting this break. I pointed out in that column that, other than – it was an implosion. I get it. It was an all-time meltdown by what has otherwise been a terrific pitching staff. Mm-hmm. It's been really good. It was not good at Clemson, other than one pitcher. The whole weekend was not good. But since then, they've been impressive. And before that, they were really impressive. So I think we can kind of now, after the Florida game and the Louisville game, we can kind of point to those, whatever that was, 24-hour span in Clemson as just the anomaly. That's just not what this team is. I guess we'll know for sure the next time they go on the road in a tough environment, which there aren't many in the ACC, but there are a few, and pitch well then we'll know for sure. But, I thought it's really cool to lose the way they did against Clemson, have that miserable bus ride, and then that response they showed against Florida. And then, they came into that series as the best fielding team in the country. And then in Game 2 on Friday night, they committed, 4 errors?
Yeah.
And Louisville won 5-2, and 4 of their runs were unearned. So for them to come back after that and play the way they did on Saturday in Game 3, I think Farrow had the only error. Otherwise, they were clean. The pitching was pretty darn good. The hitting was all what the hitting usually is. Again, it just goes to what Mike Norvell preaches, my man, response. Mm. And that's what's cool about this team is that they had the worst 2 losses a team can have and came back and beat and run-ruled their rival. And then they have their worst defensive game of the season, maybe their worst played game of the season overall. And then they come back and beat a decent Louisville team 9-4. That's response. That's good to see. Baseball's tough, man. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have bad at-bats. You're going to have bad outings. How do you respond from that is what defines what kind of team you are. And so far, they're 22-4. And Aslan, as I was writing this story, I looked up the last time they had a record like this. It was 2013 was the last time they had a record like this. 11 years ago, they had this many wins after 26 games. So that's one thing. But also, man, last year, we forget, I think, how bad it was. They went through a stretch when they went 2-22 during a 24-game stretch. 2-22.
My gosh.
I didn't remember it that bad. I knew it was bad, but 2 and 22.
Because we just stopped talking about it. We just kept punting every day. Oh, yeah, whatever. They lost again.
But it's crazy that last year they were so bad that you almost forget it was horrific. 2 and 22 during a stretch, and now you flip it around. Less than a full calendar year later, they're 22 and 4. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's, again, I know it's 26 new players. Most of the lineup is new, or at least a good portion of it is new. But, man, that just says a lot about this coach, number one, first and foremost. But then maybe what this program is becoming again. And again, you see like 6,000 fans out there on a Saturday. You see that record. You see guys like Tibbs and Cam Smith and Jamie Arnold, and even dudes like Leiter, who's still not – I mean, he struck out 12, but he's not pitching quite like an ace yet, but he's got electric stuff. This is what Florida State baseball is supposed to look like. This is what it was in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Even those last 2 Omaha trips, they got by with smoke and mirrors and a hot run. Yeah. But overall, those were not good baseball teams.
Nope.
And they were not fun baseball teams to necessarily watch through the regular season. This one is. It just feels more like Florida State baseball. And I don't know why I came to that conclusion after winning 2 out of 3 against Louisville, but it's just 22 and 4 is a record they used to have all the time.
Yeah.
That just feels like a Florida State baseball record. And it's good to see that again, especially from a guy that grew up with it and loves it about as much as you can love a baseball program.
And yeah, they're what? We're now at the –
talking about Link there, by the way,
right,
not me.
Right.
Yeah.
They're now at like near the midpoint of this season, and they're what, 1 win off their total from last season, I think? Or
no, I thought last year they won 20 games all of last year, I thought.
So, I mean, there you go right there. Link was asked to kind of reflect after the game, Corey, on Saturday about, where they're at right now as we kind of approach this midpoint of the season. Obviously, bringing all those new guys on, like, was there a point he was asked if he anticipated them being this far along to where they've found themselves? I thought it was a very revealing answer, and here's Coach.
I think it took me into our preseason a little bit, and I started to feel that we're playing the game out there. There were spurts of 15, 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, where it was as good as I've ever seen the college game played. It was as good as I've ever seen it played. And you have 2 teams playing. You have 2 teams. That's when it hit me that this has a chance to be really special.
What do you think about that, Corey?
Yeah, man, it was I was taken, not aback, but I was surprised that he said that. But I don't think it's certainly not coach speak. Like, most coaches wouldn't say something like that, but I think it's cool for him to admit that, because he also goes on to say there were also days where he's as mad as he's ever been.
Yes, and he's like, the sort of stuff I saw yesterday, and he was talking on Saturday about the loss on Friday. He's like, that sort of stuff, I saw that. And it made me angry, but I realized there was some greater stuff going on, to which they showed on Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you're practicing for 30 days, you're going to see stuff you like and stuff you don't like. But what's so telling is that he admits now, halfway through the season, that early on in February or even January, he's like, this could be a special group. Just looking at the makeup of the roster, and he's talking about the pitchers we're going extended now, so we got to see what Leiter and Arnold looked like, the new Jamie Arnold, and what Leiter looked like, and then that lineup, and then the defense. For him to come out and say, a guy, remember now, who was an All-American shortstop on some great Florida State baseball teams, and then coached at Notre Dame, coached in the World Series, coached against Tennessee, which was a great number 1 all-time team. For him to say that's as good as college baseball can look for a stretch, again, I think I don't know what he was expecting when the practice started, but it is telling that somebody like him, who's very measured, he's not hyperbolic. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy that exaggerates. He's not a look at me dude. For him to admit that he saw something in his team, and we're only 26 games into the season now. Now, he's not saying this at a press conference in Omaha. For him to be saying this right now tells you, man, what this ceiling is probably higher than even you and I comprehend, right?
Yeah, man, we're talking about the best college baseball I think I've seen.
Right.
And listen, he was around those teams in the early 2000s here at Florida State.
True, right? That's true. Yeah, he was around. Yeah, you're a good point. So it's like, that's not just him. He is not a guy that just exaggerates. He's not your buddy that brags about something that happened on a spring break trip, and you're like, yeah, sure, man, all right. we're going to divide that number by 4 or to whatever it is. We know that this guy does not speak like that. So for him to admit that he thought in the middle of the season, he thought that this team had a chance to be really, really special, and they did things for, what do you say, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, where it's some of the best baseball he's seen, is really telling. Now, again, he's a coach, and this is also the truth, that he's not just poor mouthing his team. He also admitted right after that there were some days where I was madder than I've ever been because he basically said we had days like we did in Game 2 against Louisville, where we just couldn't pick up the ball. We had meetings in the dugout but the anger comes from the potential he now knows this team has, which is, again, it's just cool, man. Like, I don't know if they're going to win I don't even know if they're going to win 40 games. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really hard schedule. They play in a really tough conference.
Yep.
They blew 2 games they should have won. And you don't want to do that when you're trying to chase wins and number 1 seeds. That could come back to bite them in June. The whole goal of this season, to start the season for me personally, was get to the NCAA tournament. Now I think they've rightfully changed that goal. As we sit here now on April 1st, and try to be a top 8 national seed. That's going to be very, very hard to do. But that is, with 2 wins over Florida, at least one of those wins over Clemson would have been nice. Oh, yeah. But they're going to have other opportunities to get big wins over highly ranked teams because the ACC is tough. But they're proven that more than anything, I guess the goal, Aslan, honestly, was show some serious improvement from last year. Don't be mired in an awful season again, and Lord knows they're not doing that. As we talked about, they went from 2-22 to 22-4 in one season. So that's I was really my eyes widened when he said that about some of the best baseball he's ever seen, because it's there, man. The defense. Yeah. Cam Smith is a Major League Baseball player. James Tibbs is a great hitter, Major League hitter. These other guys didn't just who knows, man. He might be the ACC Player of the Year.
Dingers, right?
Yeah, you're dang right. It's really, really in the bullpen kind of found itself again. So if that can happen, they got a chance.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Just about, I guess, maybe what the baseline expectation was, because I guess when you really do think about it, if you want to compare him to Mike Norvell in a weird way, like. Baseball, even, I don't know, they've been to Omaha, though, so it's tough to say. I do wonder, baseball probably further away from their glory days than Mike Norvell was when he ultimately came to Tallahassee. I know there were the 10-win seasons, the New Year's Six Bowls, but 17, 18, 19 were not great seasons, obviously. I just felt like, maybe they hadn't gotten that far away from the standard here at Florida State when it came to baseball to have, like, high expectations of getting back to a super regional. But when you really do think about, the 17 and 19 teams, the crazy things that had the confluence of things that had to happen to get them back to Omaha, the program had not been illustrious by any stretch, really, despite those high marks. So the fact that he was able to reboot it this quickly, I did not think they'd be this far along. But I had a pipe dream of, like, just get to a super. My thing was to hopefully you can win a regional. But now it's like maybe you can host a super regional.
I think that's more I get that, and I understand that, and I do this probably too much when it comes to this sport. But I think that's too results oriented for a turnaround. Like, yes, you would be disappointed if they don't host or if they don't get to a super, but that doesn't mean the season would be a disappointment. They're not at that stage yet. Like, just for them to be in the conversation of a top 10 team after the horror show of last year, to me, no matter what happens, it is a successful season in the terms of what he's doing and building.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I don't want to put the season's expectations or I don't want the success of the season just to ride on what they do in June. But like what happens in March, February, March, and April matter a ton too. And as I said, last April was the worst April in program history. I mean, I couldn't believe it, Aslan. Scrolling down nolefan.org, looking at those results. No way, that's another L. They were 11-3 last year at one point.
Yeah, beat TCU in Fort Worth.
And then after a loss to Virginia Tech, their record was 13-25. 11-3 to 13-25. That's unbelievable. So with that said, I don't want to say, now my goal is just for them to, win a regional or get to Omaha or host a super. That's postseason stuff, and postseason baseball is a crapshoot. be a team that's in a conversation for a regional. Let's take some baby steps. Our super regional will be great too, but get a regional, because getting a regional means you had a good regular season, a really good regular season. And if you host a super regional, you've had a great regular season. So if you can be in that conversation, whatever happens after that, it won't devalue what has happened, because this has been a really, really important season in the history of Florida State baseball. Coming off, again, like we said, 19, they barely got into the tournament. Now, they did get to Omaha, which was awesome, and won a game. But that was an underachieving baseball team all year. Then the COVID season happened. In 2021, they got bounced in a regional on the road. 2022, they got bounced in a regional on the road.
In horrifying fashion. Like Auburn hung, 20 runs
30 on them? Yeah, they still scoring. It was like when Bo played football there in 85. And then last year, they 23 and 31. So those are 5 or 6 really, man. I looked it up. Like 2014, 15-ish.
Yeah.
Were the last times it felt like real Florida State baseball, where 2012 was the Devin Travis, James Ramsey year. The next year was 13. They were ranked number 1 in the country for a good portion of that year and lost to Kyle Schwarber and the Supers. They had Luke Weaver. They had DJ Stewart. 2014, I think that was still DJ Stewart and Iaporti. They had guys like that. Maybe Weaver. I think Weaver might have been on that, still on that team too. Lee Brandt. Guys like that was a good team. Really good team with good players. And then, Cal Raleigh, those guys were good. Those were obviously good teams. I don't know if that was 14 or not, or Cal Raleigh would have been later.
Raleigh was 17.
Yeah. So, but that team, they were good, not great, even though they had some really good players. Like they had 2 major leaguers in Walls and Raleigh. And they just, I know they got to Omaha, but they weren't fundamentally sound. They didn't give themselves the best chance because they didn't do things the right way all the time. I feel like this team does. And again, when you think about it, though, let's say 17 was their last really good team. Well, that was 7 years ago. And that's a stretch. But that's 7 to 8 years ago.
Yep.
And since then, it's been a bunch of, barely getting into the tournaments or missing it completely. And then this year, they're now back to 22-4 in this guy's second season. It's really it's cool to see. It mirrors a little bit. It's not completely apples to apples, but what Norvell did with the football program.
Yep.
With a similar time frame, right?
Yep.
Like around that time, both programs kind of fell into the dumpster, and there was a coach in between both programs, and now apparently the right guy is pulling them out of the dumpster and into the the penthouse, the mansion, wherever you go out of a dumpster.
Diamez Ross returned to action, Corey, so that's something that can maybe hopefully spark and solidify some things in the lineup. But Cal Fisher, him coming on for Lodi's, who, go ahead and listen to the entire interview from after Saturday's game with Coach Jarrett. He's a good listen all the time. But he was just talking about Lodi's, started off slow, and then he was batting, I think, like a 340 at some point. Like he was climbing up there. And the last week and a half, 2 weeks has not been kind to him, and he had, a pretty bad game on Friday in terms of errors. Yeah. So, I like the fact that Link isn't afraid to shake things up and make a change. And
right.
He goes to a true freshman in Cal Fisher because, listen, that was a rubber game on Saturday. We're a completely different tone if they lose that game on Saturday. Sure. Cal Fisher comes and goes 2 for 4 with a home run, a 2-run shot. So it's cool to also see Link seemingly pushing the right buttons and moving things around and it might seem like a panic kind of move, but it's not, and it's calculated, and it's been successful so far.
Yeah, I like that he's willing to do that, honestly. Like a lot of coaches, baseball is such a consistency type game that you're like, okay, I know he's in a bit of a rut, but I'm gonna have him fight through it. But it's like when you got a dude like Fisher, I like that the coach will take a shot. He gave him a couple at bats, I think, in the first game, and he liked what he saw. Or no, in game 2. And liked what he saw and gave him the start. It paid off. Now, what does it do for Lodi's? We'll see. But Cal Fisher's a really talented kid. Some of these other guys, when they might go into a little bit of a rut, they don't have guys pushing them like Lodi's had Cal Fisher pushing them. So I do think with that, he's 7 for 15 on the year. So with that in mind, I think it was a good time for it. Because look, man, Lodi's has not established. It's not like Tibbs or Cam Smith or Ferrer, where you're like, look, man, these guys have been they were here all last year. I know what they can do. They might have a bad weekend, but I know what they are, and I know it's baseball, and they'll come around. Lodi's, he doesn't have that kind of history with. And quite frankly, Lodi's has had times at the plate where he just didn't look good at all, and he's had other times where he's been awesome. But you're trying to win a game. You can't afford another offer with some non-competitive at bats in Link's mind, I think is the odd thing. But I think to your point, I liked it. I don't think it's a panic move. I like the fact that he did that. Diamez is a different story. I don't know what the deal will be with that. If that's long term or if it was just a day. We'll see. But again, it's good to have a Diamez Ross that you can now apparently bring off the bench. Or if it goes to Ross, you can have Max Williams to bring off the bench. So yeah, a lot of good options that he has there, and in the pen too apparently.
Yeah, Joe Charles followed up Thursday's extinguishing effort when he came in with the bases loaded. I think there was 2 guys on. He threw 1 pitch and got a ground ball to get out of the inning. So
there you go.
That's another nice kind of Houdini moment for him. Carson Dorsey returned to action since the moments up there in Clemson. 2 innings pitched on Saturday, 3 hits, 2 strikeouts, did allow a run. 47 total pitches, 28 strikes. He was not finding the zone all that efficiently, but I think it was one of those moments where it was still, the game was hanging in the balance. He didn't let it get away from him.
He didn't give up a grand slam.
That too.
So that streak is over. And that was sarcastic. I meant it to be sarcastic, but it also is something. Like he had 2 horrible outings in a row. So for him to follow that up with, I know it's a run. He didn't pitch as well as he wanted, but it's baby steps, man. Don't implode like you did the last 2 outings. Now you got nicked a little bit. So then, you can start progressing from there. Then you go from being nicked a little bit to pitching out of a jam, and you go from pitching out of a jam to being dominant again. Like you can take those steps, but it was important that he had a nice bounce back. What's a lot of baseball here on April 1st, baby. I like it.
Let's talk some hoops, shall we? Hopefully you all bounce back from the first weekend to process the data and then get some good picks in for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. We're now down to 4 teams, everybody. The ACC's got 1 team in there.
NC State.
That's just the exact way we drew it up. The team from North Carolina, the one in Raleigh. Line set over at mybookie.ag. Use the promo code WARCHANT when you sign up for the first time. You'll get a $50 instant, well, not a $50 instant cash deposit bonus. You need to deposit at least $50, but whatever you deposit, you'll get an instant cash deposit bonus based on a percentage of that. Sorry, mybookie.ag. I should have been cleaner on that one. Nonetheless, UConn favored by 12 against Alabama. I think it's the first game, if I'm not mistaken. And then Purdue handing out 10 to the Wolfpack, Corey. I'm riding with UConn. And the total is 161.5. Both those teams score. But I'm just going to trust UConn to keep winning by large margins, and I'll take 10 points. I'll take North Carolina State in 10 points. What are your early thoughts here, Corey, on a Monday?
Yeah, I like that. Again, I think NC State goes in with absolutely nothing to lose. There's a lot of pressure on. Good for Purdue, by the way. Like that's what's awesome about sports, man. To go from that embarrassment of last year, being a 1 seed and getting knocked out of the tournament by a 16, to then doing what Virginia did, whenever that was, 5 years ago, and getting to the Final Four the very next year with mostly the same lineup. That's cool, man. Good for them. Good for those fans. They haven't been since 1980. And good for that player. Edey's awesome. He's been an awesome college basketball player. I don't care what he projects to be in the NBA. I know he is an awesome, dominant college basketball player. They have one kid in particular that is really hard to cheer for, even when you might have some money on Purdue. He's very hard to cheer for. I fought through it, and it worked. But, good for Purdue. And I like NC State to at least – that seems like a lot of points. I would keep NC State in that. I think they'll be within shouting distance in the final 5 minutes.
MyBookie.ag, live casino, live sportsbook, futures, everything. Promo requires $50 minimum deposit and rollover requirement of one-time deposit total, including bonus for withdrawal. For full terms and conditions, visit mybookie.ag/about-us. On the way out, Corey, I liked, part of me thought, did you see the post-game interview with DJ Burns on the floor with Tracy Wolfson after the game?
I did, but I wanted to remind people that I don't know if this was the last game that NC State lost, but Florida State beat them 90-83. Shot 60% from the field against them, and only 5 of 14 from they were 37 of 62 field goals, which is crazy. Florida State was. Our man DJ Burns played 12 minutes, had 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 2 assists.
Shut him down.
So it does work against the big fat guys. But hey, man,
That
what an
loss
awesome guy to watch. He's a really easy guy to cheer for. But it is crazy that he was just that. Kevin Keats, he left. There is no way he didn't get on that plane back to Raleigh after that game and know he was going to be fired in the next week.
Yeah.
He knew it.
Yeah.
And now he's going to the flipping Final Four.
Like every fan base has it. So I want to shout out to those 3 NC State fans that defended him just because there's always those fans that just defend the coach even when he's not doing great. Give him some time. You guys don't understand.
Right, yeah.
It's going to be
Louisville
all right.
had him.
Yeah.
I saw it on Louisville had him for Kenny Payne. It's like, what are y'all watching? You can't defend this.
But yeah, that loss to Florida State started a 4-game skid for them. And
okay.
They have
all
not lost since March 9th. So
they've won 9 in a row.
Yeah, no. Let me see here.
Right, they won 5 in the tournament.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So they're 9-0 in do or die games. They played 9 straight games where they knew if they lost, their season was over. Yeah. No, I don't think that's ever happened before. In the history of college basketball, I don't think that's ever happened. Not since they went to 64 teams.
Right.
I can't imagine that's happened. A team
because George Washington or George Mason, they didn't probably have a 5-game tournament.
No, they probably had 3, and they were the number 1 seed, so they might have been 2, but probably 3. I think 7 is the normal number to get to the Final Four. But nobody that has to play on the first day of a conference tournament wins the tournament and then goes to the Final Four. So this is an all-time run by what was an absolutely mediocre team all season, but has found it at the right time, so good for them.
So Tracy Wolfson, asked the good question about, how are you guys here? You guys had no business making it to the tournament. How are you here? What's changed? And he gave the most honest answers. I don't know. We're coming together and we stopped doing things like just showing up late to things.
Yeah.
And I picture the Leonardo DiCaprio meme with him pointing at the screen, seeing himself on TV pointing at it. I just pictured Mike Norvell getting in his chair and see what happens when you show up on time.
Yep. How you do one thing's how you do everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm look at that, man. So that's kind of. Are we rooting for NC State or is the Blue Corrigan tangent not?
ACC pride? You know that we're gonna ride or die with our ACC brethren. They've been great to Florida State over the years. They obviously are big fans of Florida State. No, but yeah, sure. I mean, I would really like to see UConn and Purdue. Yeah. I think that'd be a very entertaining national championship game. It might outdraw the women's game tonight between Iowa and LSU.
Ooh.
We'll see. And that is a legitimate
is that a Final Four match or is that
it's Elite Eight. It's to get to the Final Four. What will have a higher number? The Final Four, not the Final Four. Let's say the national championship game Monday night, 2 Mondays from now. So 8 days from now, 7 days from now, or the game tonight between Iowa and LSU. It's going to be close, man. It's going to be close. But yes, I think I'm out of that 4.
I like Dan Hurley. I'm sorry, I'm crazy. I like Dan Hurley.
You are crazy. No way I'm rooting for Dan Hurley. That team is really fun to watch, but I want them to at least be in a game. I think I'm rooting for Purdue.
Okay.
I don't think they've ever, as far as I know, they've never won one.
Yeah. No,
at least since integration, they haven't won one. I don't think they've ever won one, so I'm going to root for them. That's a long-suffering fan base. As I pointed out, they haven't done much in other avenues. They did land a guy on the moon. Land. He was the guy. He walked him on the moon. Yeah, that's a good point. And plus, I mean, anybody can go to a soundstage in New Mexico. Yep. And look at me! I'm gonna act like I'm on the moon. Buzz, see if you can get that flag to stand still. And they've never really. They are a basketball loving school.
Oh yeah.
Really love that sport. Yeah. It's in Indiana. They love that sport a lot. It would be really cool for them to win a national championship, and they have a chance, man. They have a chance.
I probably should save this for tomorrow's show just so we have some football to talk about, but I'll just keep my fingers crossed that something else will come across here. But somebody tweeted this at me, and I saw it last week.
Baba Miller's in the portal. That's something.
Yeah.
Hardly knew you, Baba.
Football we'll close it out with.
Okay.
The Athletic. Their guy was on a podcast. The guy who writes for their Ohio State site, or he used to, Ari Wasserman.
All right.
It was on Feinbaum, I think, actually. And they asked him to give us a list of your Mount Rushmore of college football coaches.
Oh, boy. All right.
Here we go. We got Nick Saban.
Sure.
And that's like, all right, I'm trying to figure out which, like, in descending order to go. That'll just make you less disgusted with how bad it is, but we'll just go into the
Earl
list.
Bruce.
Saban, Pete Carroll,
Tressel.
Woody Hayes, Dabo Sweeney.
Woody Hayes. Like, the Dabo's bizarre, too, by the way. So's Pete Carroll, honestly.
Yes.
Like, what?
Coaching tree, that's the only thing I can think of is maybe he's had some argument about Woody Hayes. Maybe his coaching tree, because I think Schembechler might have been part of it.
I'm sure he's doing it for engagement, but you can't. Pete Carroll was a college coach for 8 years, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, well, 8 probably sounds closer. Yeah.
Yeah, that ain't.
Look it up.
That's not Mount Rushmore worthy. And then also, yeah, there's no way you could have Woody Hayes on there. He's on the Mount Rushmore of coaches that have hit players. Publicly, he is it. He's not even a Mount Rushmore. That's like the Washington Monument. It's just him, or the Jefferson Memorial. It's just him. Him and I guess wasn't there a basketball coach that? Well, I guess Bobby Knight choked a guy. So there's other guys that are on there, but no, there's no. Why would Woody Hayes be on there as opposed to Bowden or even Schembechler? Or Bud Wilkinson, or Tom Osborne.
Yeah.
Like just because he's an Ohio State guy, he's going to pick Woody Hayes. How did Woody Hayes do anything to revolutionize the sport? I would say Bowden. The one argument I make for Bowden, look, there's a lot of great coaches. They all have multiple national championships. Is that what he did when he did it, and how the sport changed, largely because of Florida State, Miami, and Florida, but Florida, especially Florida State and Miami. Just what they meant to the sport itself when it was becoming one of the most popular sports in the country. Florida State and Miami, I know there were some wide rights in there, but that was at the heart of the college football boom that we're still in the middle of. Man, think about college football in 1982, well after Woody Hayes got done. I mean, he didn't change anything. Bobby Bowden also he played anybody anywhere, the trick play, the fast break offense, all that stuff that he brought to the sport. That Woody Hayes, he just hand the ball to Archie Griffin? Yeah, man, they were doing that in the 40s and 30s with Newt Rockne when he was giving it to George the Gipper. You didn't revolutionize anything. I might be wrong. I'm sure there's some Ohio State fans that Woody Hayes maybe invented. I don't know, the 2-point conversion. Who knows? But as far as I know, Woody Hayes didn't do anything but win a lot of games. He didn't really revolutionize, and he didn't win any more than Bowden. He won less than Bowden, and had to retire in disgrace because he punched a Clemson player.
In a bowl game.
In a bowl game, the Gator Bowl. Back when bowls mattered, guys. That's the thing. Don't lose sight of. But bowls used to matter so much that coaches would punch opposing linebackers. Now there's no opposing linebackers to punch. They're all in street clothes.
It's like when bowl season starts on ESPN, like on December 14th, and it's the Pomegranate Bowl in the Bahamas or whatever. They should just play a montage of like Woody Hayes smacking a player, just other bowl games that like mattered.
Yeah, sure.
You think these bowl games don't matter? Ask Woody Hayes.
Ask that Clemson linebacker's throat.
All right.
We did it.
We did do it. All right, that's a wrap for us. There's some recruiting stuff going on, I think, from the past weekend over on the recruiting board. I asked Michael, and he's like, nothing earth-shattering, so just go to the PRB if you got that itch for some recruiting stuff. That's why we're going to have him on the pod today. But we'll be cranking out shows the rest of the week. It is spring football, after all. Busy week for the Noles on the Diamond, too. They played Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they head to Boston College for a 3-game set. Shout out softball. They swept NC State, if I'm not mistaken, this past weekend.
They did. Yep. The bats were out full force. Harding had a good series. Well, they all had good series because they hit the ball really well. One of the freshmen, Torres. I think Torres hit a walk-off. That was nice. And then the Kennedy Harp. Okay. Kennedy Harp had a really good series, too, I think. So good to see, man. The freshmen are starting to – well, Beecham's been doing it all year, and so is Torres. But good to see Kennedy Harp getting in there. Yeah,
we're in April now. This one thing.
Yeah, you're not freshmen anymore, ladies.
Yeah, not finding stuff out. Now you're figuring stuff out. So
yep.
We'll see how it all goes for everybody. Head over to warchant.com, the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. Plenty going on over there. We'll be back out of practice on Tuesday, but we'll have another show for you in the meantime. And before that, Jeff Cameron Show's got you covered 1 to 3 o'clock. Check it out, Warchant TV, 93.3 FM as well. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.